Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin daf Lamed Daled. We're going to begin on Lamed Daled about Aleph, about 6 lines from the top, with the words Gidol bar Re'iloi, which we were discussing in the previous dafim regarding a husband who is sending a get through a shliach, whether or not he has the capacity to be able to be mevatel that get, even not in the presence of the shliach or his wife. And we said because of the takana, it was something which ended up not being allowed. So in this, the Gemara continues with Gidol bar Re'iloi, the Shadle Gittin Besu. So he actually sent a get through a shliach to his wife. Also shlichusa, so his shliach did precisely as he was asked to do. And ashkache, and he found her dahavi yosva v'navla, that she was literally sitting and engaged in weaving. So she was preoccupied in doing something, and because of this, Rashi says ogera, she was orega, she was like again weaving. Amrullah, so he said to her, hagitich, so here's your get, the shliach, and you're going to be divorced. So Amrullah, she said, you know what, today's maybe not the best day. Zil hashta, go away now. Mia b'tov machar, then come back tomorrow and give me the get then. So Azul Gabe, so he went, Yarmale, Pasach v'yomer bracha tov hametiv. So when this took place, he heard that he said, oh, Baruch Hashem, Tov HaMeitiv, which we say upon Besoros Tovos, upon good tidings, says Rashi, Shol Masartala, which means, oh, great, I'm so glad you didn't give it. Now, the question is that considered to be a language of bittul? Because he didn't say, I'm now being mavatal the get. All he did was simply say, Baruch Tov HaMeitiv, which is an indication that he probably does not want his wife to get divorced. But is it enough to consider it as a bittul? So Abaye Oimer Baruch Tov HaMeitiv lo batul gita. Okay, so he said those words. That doesn't mean that the get is batul. Says Rashi, so therefore, because it was not considered to be a bittul, this get is still valid. So if tomorrow the shliach goes and gives this get to her, so she in fact will be divorced. However, now actually, the fact that he said this is enough to mean it's clear that he was trying to be mavatal the get. So b'may kimifka, what's the machlokus between Rabbi and Rabbi? So begili dai to begita kimifki. So this is in the language of Yal Kagam, which we'll discuss shortly. This is one of the 6 places where we find this machlokus between Abai and Rava, and we'll see who we paskin like. That when it comes to Gili Daita Begita, an expression of intent, says Rashi, Shenu Chafetz Od B'Shlichus, he doesn't really want him to continue in his shlichus, but he didn't really specify. That in itself is the machlokus. The Abai Savar Gili Daita Begita Lav Nulsehi. It's nothing, because you need to say beferish, you have to explicitly say that you wish to be mavatal the get. That's what's required. And therefore, since he didn't do it, so the get is still valid. It is enough, and therefore the get is bottle. How do I know that when it comes to Gilui Das, that actually the din is that will be Mavat get, and that's Emilsa? The Rav Sheshes, there was a story with Rav Sheshes, that he took this get regarding this person, Balkarche. It was against his will. Rav Sheshes says, Rav Sheshes Amrulchem V'yani Shemati Levatel Gita. The Amrullahu, and he said to the husband, was Sahadi in front of witnesses, Hachi. Amrullahu, Rav Sheshes Levatel Gita. So he said, Rav Sheshes was Mavatel my get. V'yasrachei Rav Sheshes Gita Achrina, and Rav Sheshes required me to have another get. Now we know that this in itself is very difficult to understand. Says, but not, even though he didn't really say it explicitly, he just said that Rav Sheshes did it. So what do we see? It says Rashi Alma Mishum Goli Daita B'Bitula, that the fact that he had an expression of intent because Rav Sheshes didn't want me to have this get, so therefore it should be considered to be bottle. So Babai ought to what? Rav Sheshes Mavatal Gita the Inshehavi. Rav Sheshes, as great as he is, does not have the legal capacity to be able to be mavatal this get. He is of no authority to be able to nullify the get. Only the husband has that right. So the ihu bitle, it's only he that can do it. The only reason why he said this is, as Rashi says, B'nei Adam hamakin v'choivtin oisai b'mitzvahs Rav Sheshes v'ermulo lama ata mavatloi. So he may actually be punished and hit for nullifying this get, because Rav Sheshes could have ordered people to have done so. So therefore, the reason why he said this regarding Rav Sheshes, that he was involved in this process, is not that Rav Sheshes himself is going to be mavatal the get. He doesn't have the ability to do it. All he was doing was saying that Rav Sheshes is empowered so much that he could actually get people to harm me if I am mavatal the get. So he says, I'll prove to the other way around. I'll show you that when it comes to Gili Daita Begita, it's nothing. Rabbi Yehuda Ashkali Gita Lachasne. That Rabbi Yehuda took a get for his son-in-law, the son-in-law of Rabbi Yomi Yirah. Ubatale, it was a mavatalet. Tana Ashkale Ubatale. Again, he went, and it was mavatalet. Hadar Tana Ashkale did it again. Al Karche against his will. V'yarmelahu plus Sahadi with witnesses Oisivu Kare Bonaichu, that you should, and this is what he told the people, that in order for you not to be able to hear him being mavatal, he keeps being mavatal the get. We write the get, he's mavatal it. So what you need to do is osivu kari, literally to put gourd, to put something of substance inside bunaichu, into your ears, in order to use them almost like as an earplug, so that you will not have the capacity to be able to hear this man be mavatal the get again. Uksuvule, and write it. And this way you're not going to hear him be mavatal the get. Now, if you want to tell me that intent alone is enough to be mavatal get, even if you have the most powerful earplugs in the world and you cannot hear a single thing, it doesn't make any difference. You see the husband running after you, screaming at you. You know that he's already been engaged in this process of mavatal get before. You know what his intention is. He most likely is trying to do the exact same thing again. The fact that he's advising him to do this shows that Gili Das, when it comes to a get, is not enough to be mavatal the get. So how does he get out of this? So Haide Karoid Basrahu, it's not a raya that the fact that he's running after you, that he's trying to be mavatal the get. He may have other intentions. Yermulahu Asher Havula Haya. I want you to strengthen yourself to give the get even quicker. Kehecha Delishlim Tsar Dahu Gavra, in order that the Basin will stop troubling him, referring to himself. And therefore, we don't really know what his intentions are, which is the whole point of why Gili Milsa is not necessarily a milsa. That Gili Daita in itself shouldn't work, because we don't necessarily know what this person's intentions are. And therefore, until he says a beferish, the din is going to be that the get is not going to be batal. So Abai again tries to prove to his point that there was a person that was said to him, Ilo asina atlasin yomi. This is what he said. If I don't, to this woman, he said, give me 30 days. All right, this is the tanai, a condition I'm making. The lahavi gita. If I don't come back to you within 30 days, if 30 days time has elapsed and I do not come to you, then that get will be a valid get. However, if I get here a second before the 30 days, then it's no longer a get. So what happened? We got to the very last moment, and also Paski Mavra. He was going to jump on this ferry, this boat, to be able to get to the other side in order to be able to bimavatal the get. But unfortunately, the ferry left. He missed the boat. So Amruhu chazad asoy. You hear him screaming, I'm here, I'm here. And as we're familiar with this Gemara, as we saw elsewhere, you're not considered to be in the city. You're not here. You're saying you're here. You're not here. You're on the other side. So the question is, what do you mean? It's clear based on what he's trying to do that he's trying to be mavatal the get. He wants this to work. We know what his intentions are. L'chayra, this is Gili Daita, Begita, and nonetheless we see clearly it doesn't work. Rabbi will say, to what? Hasam levatul gita boy. This has nothing to him mavatal the get. It's conditional. Hasam lekiyumi tanoi kaboy. It's all based on the initial condition. He's not being mavatal the get. He's not saying this is no longer a good get. He's saying that the condition that I made, I want that to work. has nothing to do with bittul, therefore that's not a raya. I have a whole came tonight. Hahudi Yarma, who had another story of a person that said, "Ilo nitzivna atlosin yamin lahavigita." If if one is not married, says Rashi, kasav get, wrote a get, v'nosan larusasai, and he gave it to a woman that he had erison with, almanas, on condition shimul yichanes, if they don't get married on shloshim yom he get. So this is a pretty amazing way to push for a person to get married. So 30 days, if 30 days go by and we're not married yet, okay, fine, that'll be a good get. So kimatu tlosin yom, 30 days came, Armulhu ha-tarchana. He said, I really wanted to get married within those 30 days, but I was matriach, says Rashi, but it was beyond my will. I was so busy preparing for our wedding, the 30 days went by. I don't want it to actually mean anything. I still want to be married to you. I don't want the get to be chal. So Gemara says, why should we be concerned? Why would you think it isn't a get? We established in Masechtas Ksubas that if a person has an einus, there's no einus when it comes to gittin. It's still a get. As we said, that's totally on a machlokas, Abai and Rav, and of course depending on who you hold of. Fine. Who person said, if I don't get married in the Rosh Chodesh, the Adar will have Gita. So Kimato Reish Yarcha the Adar, so that day came. Armahu Ano Reish Yarcha the Nisan Amri. Actually, I thought I had an extra month. Maybe he thought there was an Adar Sheni that month. So he didn't realize necessarily that this was correct. So my Nechashla. So even though it was an Einis, Yimishum Einis, Einis begin. Yimishum Gili Daita, put to the Bible Rabba, Behilchasa. At the end of the day, what is the halacha? So this is an interesting line. Hilchasa Kanachman, the halacha is like Nachman, the hilchasa Kanachman, and by the way, the halacha is like Nachman, and as we continue Lamed Daled Midbeis, the hilchasa Kanachmeni. So halacha is like Nachman, halacha is like Nachman, halacha is like Nachmeni. What on earth does that mean? So Rashi tells us, which is based on question 12, hilchasa Kanachman and hilchasa Kanachman. Elu Gimel halachos nemrukan. So Rashi says the halacha is like Nachman, Di'amul El Bittel Bifnei Shnayim. That we said when it comes to mimavatal in front of two people and not in front of three. Regarding, do you need to have three people or two? So according to Nachman, he says you only need two. The halacha is Nachman. Nami Baha Di'amul Halacha Kirebi B'Shtehen. That it is a good. That what do we say? It's a good bittel. Ze yachol avatloi ze shaloi bifnei ze. You can be mavatal one, not in front of the other. And of course, as we continue, we'll see this Rashi in a second. The hilchas kanachmeni. Nachmeni is Abaye, so we'll discuss why in a second. But let's look at question 12. Question 12 says, Karav Nachman, the bittel, the get, koidem takana b'fnei shtayim. Before the takana, and you can be mavat the get even in front of a basin, not in front of your wife, not in front of a shliach, is a basin of even two people. We hold like Rav Nachman, the halachas karebi b'shtein, regarding both of them, b'bittel achar takana mavutal, that even those takana that you shouldn't work, that you shouldn't be able to use a basin, it will be a good bittel. And if you have 10 people, you can be mavatal zeshel b'fnei zeh. So this famous Rashi, as we continue to Lamed Daled Midbeis, tells us the following. What does it mean the halacha is like Nachmeni? First of all, he says that it doesn't work. You have to be beferish to be mavatal. This is this famous simon of Yal Kegam. The hilchasa kabaya, that the halacha is like abaya in those 6 things. Of course, Yish, Edim Zaymin, Lechi, Kiddushin, Shin Misim Labia. Here is the Gimel, which is the Gili Daita Begittin, and Mem is for a mummer. The hilchas agabai v'nir be'enai the al shem sharabba bar Nachmeni gidol abai bebeso. Why is he called Nachmeni? Because Rabba bar Nachmeni grew up in his house. V'limdu Torah shay yasam, because we know that Abai was actually an orphan. Hisiu es shem aviv, so therefore he was given this name Nachmeni Rabba Stamhu Rabba Bar Nachmeni. Okay. Weiter. So the next Mishnah says as follows. Says the Masnisa, B'Shayna, Hayimishana Shmo Shma, Shem Ira V'Shem Ira. We didn't write so much on the get. We wrote her name, his name, their cities. However, that may not have been enough. Hiskin Rabbi Gamliel Hazakan Shehi Kaisav Ish Pliny V'Chol Shum Sheishlo. Isha Plynus V'Chol Shum Sheishlo. Nevnei Tikkun Ha'olam. So they ended up adding more names. So if not just your actual birth name, but if you have other nicknames or secondary names, all those things are also going to be added onto the get because of tikkun olam, which we'll discuss what that means. Look at Rashi. Let's say you have two names. One, let's say in Eretz Yisrael, but in another country they know you by a different name. So you used to be that you just wrote one name and that was enough. However, because of Tikkun Olam, no. You can say this guy never got divorced. What do you mean? Here's a get. Yeah, that's not his name, so it must be someone else. And therefore, because of that, we decided to write everyone's name. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel, Shalchala, B'nei Medina Sayyam, Rabbi Gamliel. So they sent this message. B'nei Adam Haboyim Misham Makan. People are coming from there to hear Shmo Yosef. His name was Yosef. V'karin lo Yochanan. But he has totally the second name, or the other way around. Yochanan v'karin lo Yosef. So he has one name here, one name there. Heich Migarshin Nishaysein. How are they able to divorce their wives? Because their names are totally different in different locations. So Amar Rabbi Gamliel Hiskan Shahi Ksuvan Ish Ploini V'Chol Shum Sheishlo Isha Ploinis V'Chol Shum Sheishlo Memin Tikkun Olam. Because of that issue, that people will get confused and think this person is not really the person who he says he is. So therefore, we write everyone's name, the name that I'm called here, the name that I'm called elsewhere. Well, it could be, for example, Bizman Azeh. If let's say you live in the United States, you write down your Hebrew name. You write down if you have an English name. This different ways that you're called, it's all added onto the get in order to avoid any of these potential issues. That this, who is this guy? Omer Rav Ashi v'hu dischazik betray shmei. The only time we have this requirement is only if he's known by another name. Says Rashi, avolo ischazik kan. If the person does not have a chazaka to have a second name, then there's no need to actually write any other names. It's not necessary. Amrle Rabbi Abel Rav Ashi Rabbi Mari Rabbi Lazar Kaimi Kavasech. We hold like him. Tani Kavasech Rav Ashi. We hold like him. Hayulo Shtei Nashim. A person has two wives, Achas b'Yehuda v'Achas b'Gol, and they're in two different cities. V'lo Shnei Shemus, and he has two names, Echad b'Yehuda v'Echad b'Gol. He's known for different names in different locations. The Garish es Ishto Shebihuda b'Shemo Shebihuda, and he divorces his wife in Yehuda by the name that he's known by in that city, or for that matter, es Ishto Shebigol b'Shemo Shebigol in Begreshus. So the fact that he's known in Yehuda by one name, even though that was the name that he wrote, it's not good enough. It's not good enough because he has another name that he's known for in a different city. So what does he need to do? Ad she garishes ishto Yehuda, when he divorces his wife in Yehuda, b'shmo Yehuda b'shem digol imo. He has to write both names. The es ishto shebigol b'shmo shebigol b'shem Yehuda imo. He needs to do both. Fine. However, Yotzel Makam Acher, let's say he goes to a third location. He's not in Yehuda, he's not in Goel, he goes to Morocco, right? He goes to New York. So in Vigerish Be'echad Mehen, and he divorces them with either of the names Migoreshes. Shem to go imo, you have to do both. It's all totally if people know you. So if people know you, so therefore you have to use both names. But if you go to a third location that basically no one knows you, so therefore it's not an issue. Fine. Hahi dahavi karula Miriam. So we say the following. Let's say you have a city where the people know her as Miriam. However, Porta, there's some people, not many, but some people call her Sarah. Amri Narda, Miriam. So what are you supposed to do? You write the following. Miriam v'chol shum sheishla. So v'lo Sarah v'chol shum sheishla. So because her primary name is Miriam, so you write Miriam v'chol shum sheishla. Miriam and all her other similar names. Again, the question is, you actually have to write more than that, the specific names, but the one which is the primary name is the one that you name first. Okay, before we continue with a couple of more questions, let's look at this Gillian Hashas. He quotes down regarding Nachmani, Uva Orech Abaye Ksa B'Shem HaGoinim, the Nachmani Shmo. His Abaye's real name was Nachmani. V'Haya Bar Achua Daraba. He was the brother's son of Rabba Bar Nachmani. V'Talmideha, and his student. V'Kavan Dahavi Shmei Nachmani Kishem Avua. The Rabba Bar Nachmani. Lo Havi Karile B'Chol Shah Nachmani. Okay, so again, there's different opinions exactly the significance of why he was called by that name. All right, let's see question 13. This is only Rashi. Ezu nidon mihilchos Gittin echad misimani yalke gamhu v'uma shitas abaya benidon. So Gili das begitin v'abaya omer delav milsehi. Question 14. Haylo shnei shemos echad b'makam haksiva v'echad b'makam hanasina. So one place where it was written, one place where it was given, because to beget echad mehen, and it was because of beget echad mehem, you only wrote one name, ma ha'im kosher. So if it b'muchsik b'shnei shemus puzzle. So again, what happened over here is you wrote it in one place and it was given in a different place. So therefore, since there was a writing and the giving in two different places, you need to have both names because they know you by those two different names. However, if it's in a situation, the loas chazek, where people just don't know you by those names, then it is not an issue. Okay, let's look at a couple more questions. TA2. Mi sheishlo shtei shemos, someone who has two names. Ha'im sarach lichtav shneim beget. So as we said, im es chazek sarach, im lo es chazek kan rak be'echad mehem eno sarach. So that is pretty much similar to question 14. That was TA2. And question TB3. Haylo shnei shemos echad b'makam aksiva echad b'makam anasina v'kosav beget echad mehem ha'im kosher. So of course that's exactly the same. Let's just see the language of what I wrote just for entertainment purposes. So this is what I wrote. TB3. Im muchzakim mushtei shemos sarach lichtov es shneihem v'im lav posel. Aval im hashtei shemos enu muchzakim oz haget get kosher. Okay, sounds right. Ad kan.